CEO mocked his driver, then froze when her 9 languages saved $1 billion deal. The morning sun had just started rising over the glass towers of Solaris City when something unexpected broke the calm. A sleek black Mayfair executive sedan pulled up outside the towering headquarters of Orinex Global, and from the driver's seat stepped a young woman whose presence didn't match the stereotype of a chauffeur. She wore a neat navy uniform, her posture quietly confident, her gaze sharp as sunlight slicing through fog. Her name was Riva Marquez, and though no one knew it yet, the world would soon whisper that name with awe. But that day began with humiliation. A tall, impeccably dressed man strutted out of the building, his expression carved with pride and impatience. This was Caspian Holt, the youngest CEO in the conglomerate's history, known for his brilliance, ruthlessness, and arrogance. He adjusted his cufflinks with an air of someone who believed the world existed solely to serve his schedule. When he saw Riva waiting by the car, he didn't even try to hide his disdain. He scoffed, shaking his head as if the very sight of her was an inconvenience designed by fate to annoy him. And then, loud enough for his assistants and nearby employees to hear, he mocked her. "Can someone explain why we hire drivers who look like they belong in a college debate club? Honestly, is this a chauffeur or a scholarship applicant?" His words sliced through the morning air like knives dipped in ice. That a few people laughed nervously. That Riva's face didn't break. She simply bowed her head slightly and opened the car door. But inside her chest, something tightened. Pain, old and familiar. She had heard words like these before, growing up in the cramped back streets of East Mercia, where people decided your worth long before you ever had the chance to prove them wrong. Still, breathe, she told herself. You're here for a reason. Hold your dignity, even when they don't hold theirs. As Caspian slid into the back seat, he tossed his briefcase beside him carelessly and sighed. Let's get moving. Don't be slow. Riva closed the door calmly. Yet deep inside, she whispered to herself that life had strange ways of testing a person just before revealing their purpose. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unseen potential, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness Stories. Your support helps these powerful human stories reach more hearts. Riva drove smoothly, navigating the busy intersections as Caspian reviewed documents behind her. He didn't know that she understood every word he muttered, not just in his own language, but in several others scribbled in the margins of his files. She recognized notes written in Portuguese, Mandarin, Italian, and even Armenian. Most people saw her as a simple driver, but beneath her calm exterior existed a mind crafted by hardship and sharpened by relentless learning. She had once dreamt of becoming a linguist and diplomat. Life, however, had carved a different path, one filled with detours, silent struggles, and responsibilities that forced her dreams to sleep. Caspian certainly didn't know she spoke 9 languages fluently, picked up over years of working odd jobs, reading borrowed books, and teaching herself from discarded newspapers in foreign tongues. But fate has a peculiar way of unlocking hidden doors exactly when they're needed. That particular morning, Caspian was on his way to the most critical meeting of his career. Orinex Global had spent years trying to secure a financial alliance with the Zorvani Consortium, a group of international investors with the power to transform Orinex into a world-leading tech force. Billions were on the line. Generations of the company's future hung in the balance. Yet Caspian, despite all his wealth and intellect, was about to learn the greatest lesson of his life from the person he least valued. When they reached the private heliport, Caspian stepped out without acknowledging Riva. He was too busy rehearsing his presentation. His team rushed around him, a flurry of suits and tablets. Riva parked the car and waited, as instructed, in a small rest area for drivers. She sipped her tea quietly, observing the sky grow brighter. Something in her gut told her this day wasn't going to stay ordinary. Her instinct was right. An hour later, chaos erupted. Assistants ran back and forth. Security guards scrambled to reorganize the space. One of Caspian's top advisors stormed toward the driver's lounge, his face pale with panic. Riva sat up straighter, sensing trouble. The advisor was yelling into his phone. This can't be happening. The interpreter backed out at the last second. They speak 5 different languages between them. Someone find a replacement now. Now, Riva felt her heartbeat quicken. She heard voices from the main hall, Caspian's angry tone echoing sharply. How does a billion-dollar company end up without an interpreter? Do you understand what's at stake? We can't afford even one miscommunication. The meeting had already begun. Riva stepped out quietly, unable to shake the strange feeling that destiny was calling her name. She approached the assistant gently. "Excuse me," she said softly, "but I overheard. Are you missing language support for the meeting?" The man stared at her, confused and irritated. "This is not the time for questions. Please return to your area." She raised her chin. "I can help." He blinked. "Help? You're a driver. This is a multilingual negotiation. I speak 9 languages, she said calmly, clearly, without pride. Only truth." His jaw loosened. Before he could respond, another executive, frantic and sweating, ran up. "We're losing them." The investors are already speaking among themselves in a mix of dialects, and no one understands a thing. Caspian is furious. The first assistant pointed at Riva. She says she speaks 9 languages. Riva nodded. I can interpret. Let me try. If I'm not good enough, send me away immediately. With no other option left and the stakes towering, they rushed her inside. The conference room was vast and intimidating, with a long glass table surrounded by powerful people in tailored suits, each representing a different nation and culture. The air felt frozen with tension. Caspian stood at the head of the room, beads of stress forming on his forehead as the Zorvani delegates conversed rapidly in Armenian and Persian, sprinkled with Mandarin references. His team looked helpless. When he saw Riva being ushered in, his expression hardened into disbelief. What is she doing here? Caspian snapped. I asked for solutions, not. But his sentence vanished as Riva stepped forward, bowed politely toward the investors, and began speaking fluently in their native language. Silence fell like a curtain dropping in a theater. The investors blinked, first in shock, then in intrigue. One of them, an elderly gentleman with silver-streaked hair, spoke to her in rapid Mandarin. She responded without hesitation. Another asked her a question in Italian. She switched tongues effortlessly. A woman at the end of the table uttered something in Armenian dialect. Riva replied in the same dialect, her tone respectful and precise. The room transformed. The investors began smiling, nodding, leaning forward with interest. Someone even chuckled softly at one of her polite jokes, something no one else in the Orinex team would have dared to attempt. That Caspian's face turned pale, his arrogance flushed away by shock. The negotiations resumed, this time flowing with clarity, warmth, and understanding. All because Riva stood at the center, bridging worlds, connecting cultures, dissolving tensions with every translated sentence. Today's hours passed. She didn't tire. She didn't falter. She carried herself with a quiet dignity that demanded respect without ever asking for it. By late afternoon, the meeting concluded with handshakes so firm they echoed destiny. The billion-dollar partnership was secured, but something else happened too. Something far more powerful than money. Caspian Holt, the man who had mocked her that morning, walked toward her with a shaken expression. The conference hall had emptied, leaving only echoes of success behind. Riva stood with her hands clasped, ready to leave, expecting nothing. But the CEO stopped in front of her. His voice carried no arrogance now, only humility. Riva, he hesitated, swallowing hard. I owe you an apology. And more than that, I owe you my gratitude. She bowed gently. I was only doing what anyone would do if they had the ability. No, he whispered. Only a rare kind of person would do what you did. And for the first time since she had joined the company, Caspian Holt looked at her, not as a driver, not as an employee, not as someone beneath him, but as a human being of extraordinary worth. Over the next few days, everything changed. Word spread throughout the company about the mysterious multilingual driver who saved the biggest deal in Orinex history. Executives whispered her name in the hallways. Employees looked at her with newfound respect. Her story became the heartbeat of the week, an unexpected reminder that brilliance can live quietly in the places people least expect. Soon enough, Caspian summoned her to his office. The top-floor suite had floor-to-ceiling windows with a panoramic view of the entire city. Caspian stood with his hands behind his back, waiting for her. Riva walked in cautiously. He gestured toward a chair. Please sit. She remained standing. Sir, if this is about the meeting, it's about